Hey folks, another quick communication tip here. Today's communication tip is a foundational one. This is a communication tip that I use to guide myself in a lot of my coaching sessions, and it's one that I use kind of in any relationship. So one of my frustrations with the coaching leadership, executive, whatever you want to call it, field right now, self-help field, is that we're forced to break into the market by naming something, writing a book, putting it on the website, making our acronym. Typically, people are renaming something that we all already know, that we're already aware of, but they're packaging it in a way that makes sense. Another hazard of that is that it takes it out of context of the science of understanding humans and communication and all of these elements that are in play. So people kind of grab onto this one thing and they run with that one thing, and it's useful until it's not, is the problem. So the foundational tip I want to talk about today is this human condition that we're all trapped in. And it's this 1-2 punch of something called the negativity bias principle and the golden ratio. So the negativity bias is an observable fact. Neuroscience is studying this a lot right now, that our brains tend to bias towards the negative. We do not know that we do this. Everybody does this, which you'll see in yourself or in others, that if we have a negative experience, or if we have an experience, we'll always see it as a negative experience. If we see a movie, we start thinking about why we didn't like it before we think about why we liked it. If we go to a restaurant and have a mediocre experience, we're much more inclined to write those reviews and complain and jump on those things. Even in small talk, you'll find that people will jump towards something negative. So small talk will tend to be talking about somebody or some unfortunate event. So it's just what humans like. It's how our brains are designed. I think that has a lot to do with that our brains are designed for survival. So better to live another day, so to speak. So if we make some mistakes towards a negative, or if we're biased towards that, it doesn't matter, because it means we're going to be around. If the rustling in the leaves is either the wind or a lion, we better assume it's a lion trying to kill us. Worst case scenario, we just look a little dumb if it's the wind, but we're going to be alive for that next day. So the negativity bias of the brain is something that you really need to get mindful about. You really need to get aware of. Catch yourself doing that, gearing towards that negative. The yeah buts, the strength and weakness assessments are always about weakness. Those performance appraisals are always heavy on the weak side. We only talk to our employees when we're correcting them. We don't talk to our employees about what they did well. We kind of just let that go by the wayside. So the golden ratio is something that comes out of the work of a fellow named John Gottman. He and his wife ran a therapy practice, and I think he developed this before he was married, but he could predict divorce in new clients with about an 80% accuracy after a session or two. He told us what he was doing later on was he was counting the negative to positive interactions. Now, I like to add something called neutral interactions, which is an interaction that doesn't fall too far into that negative or positive. And he found that if those negative and positive interactions weren't at a 5-to-1 ratio of positive to negative, that human relationships tended to break down. This is true in the professional world as well. That's when people tend to get disillusioned, leave teams, quit jobs, start kind of objecting passive aggressively if they're not at that 5-to-1 ratio. The negativity bias of the brain is thought to be around 11-to-1. So there's already a huge disconnect between those two that if we are not proactive and conscious about, we're always going to be breaking down those teams and then wondering how that happened. Another thing about this tip is that it's in the day-to-day. It's not about I go out of my way to reward people occasionally because I've already kind of hit that 11-to-1 negative. It's about embodying an attitude where you're hunting for those positives, those exceptions, and making them overt, commenting on them. So that's the tip. So see if you can find yourself doing this. See if you can really be authentic with yourself about how you tend towards that negative and how much you actually go to that positive of validating people. Today, can you find someone doing something, even small, that benefits you or the team, and comment on it? Hey, I really like that. That was great work. Thanks for that. That's really cool. How do you do that? Show some interest in it. That's a tip. Let me know how it works out in the comments. Let me know if you got questions, and see you again next week.